Today I'm here with Tom Shanahan. Tom is unique in the fitness industry because he's not only a personal trainer, he's a AAAI certified personal trainer, but he's also an attorney licensed in both Manhattan and in Florida as well, Fort Lauderdale, if I remember correctly.
That's
And
correct. I have offices in Manhattan and in Fort Lauderdale. Thank you.
definitely. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, not only because of your unique background, but because you also work with people who are recovering alcoholics and other addictions, and you're even a published author on this as well. So I think you
Mhm.
bring something unique to the table that I believe that fitness trainers should be familiar with. So,
Mhm.
Tom, my first question for you is, how did you come to become AAAI ISMA certified?
So I was living in Portland, Maine, many, many years ago, back in 2010, 2011. And there was a gentleman at the gym. His name is Mike Foley. He worked at World Gym at that time. He now has a huge facility right outside of Portland called Foley's Fitness. It just won Gym of the Year in Maine, and they're opening a second location. So lots changed for Mike since then. But he would work out super early with me in the mornings, and he would come outside when I would have my cigarette breaks during my workout, and be like, "Why do you even bother to show up to the gym if you're going to go outside and smoke?" At that time, I was in early recovery from alcohol and drugs, but I thought smoking was okay. I haven't smoked in 12 years. Long story short, he became a mentor to me. He's in my book, which is Spiritual Adrenaline, a lifestyle plan to strengthen and nourish your recovery. Mike is featured in the book, and a lot of what he espouses as these disciplines and principles of healthy lifestyle. So he was certified by this organization. So I said, I want to do what he does because it's working for him. So I want it to work for me too.
Wow, that's fantastic. And yeah, I've got my copy of Spiritual Adrenaline you gave me
Oh,
many years
nice.
ago. Yeah, I've got it too.
Well,
So
you've played a huge role in it too because you don't remember this. But when I came to get certified, I took your class back in Baltimore. I think it was in about 2014, 2015. And I didn't study. I really didn't pay attention because I thought I knew everything about everything. And I didn't pass the test that year when I took the sports nutrition certification. So it really pissed me off. And I said, I'm going to take this seriously. I came back and I took your next training and I did get certified. And a lot of what I learned in your class and I learned from my personal training certification and some of the other classes that I take at the functions and the conventions put together by the organization are reflected in this book. And that's why I sent it to you and I said, thank you very, very much.
oh, wow, that's very, I did not know that. I really appreciate that. That was very
Yeah.
cool. So you work with people who are recovering. What are some unique challenges you've run into with this population as you try to help them?
I think that the problem we have in society generally is that we have industries that make fortunes off of keeping people perpetually sick and dependent on a medication or a doctor or rehab or this or that. So in the recovery community, if you stay sober and if you succeed in avoiding relapse, there's no money to be made. If you're a chronic relapser in and out of inpatient or outpatient facilities or on medications, there's a lot of money to be made. And so, you're running against the tide, if you will. And oftentimes, and I write about this in my book, there's a chapter about the 12 steps. I was given access to the AA Research Library, which is located in New York City. And I found great information about the early days of AA and how Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob, and Dr. Silkworth all understood that nutrition and lifestyle movement played an integral role in people's ability not only to get sober, but to stay sober. So the misnomer is that nutrition and exercise are outside issues to staying sober. But the founders of AA and the 12-step program didn't agree with that. And in fact, Bill Wilson had six foods, all calorie rich but nutrient deficient. You talk about that at your sports nutrition seminars. Six foods that he recommended that people in addiction recovery and from alcohol not eat. And he also was a big proponent of supplementation, vitamin B, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that the industries and the people that are making money have kind of distorted and taken power away from people people can get sober and they have the power to do that inside. They don't need a pill. They just need to really find that strength and bring it out. And that's what exercise and nutrition does. But that's not what mainstream thought is in recovery today.
Mm. Yeah, I always think about what Chris Rock said in one of his comedic concerts one time. The money is in the medicine. It's not in the cure. He hit the nail on the head.
It's absolutely the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely the truth.
Yeah. So has there been a success story that you've encountered that really stands out to you?
So, there's a number of them. When you write a book and you can communicate with people who don't even know, and they reach out to you and they tell you that your book benefited them, it's an amazing gift. So, for example, there's Marlene Markowitz who lives up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Is someone who read my book when it first came out. We've stayed in touch. We're now personal friends all these years later. She's in her 70s. She's so fit, and she's into all nutrition, exercise, and integrated that into recovery. She reached out to me. She tells everybody about my book, but out of nowhere, she reached out to me to say, my friend Henry has your spiritual adrenaline, the copy of your book, on his Facebook banner. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. She sent me the photos, and he had my book, and he was writing about how it had changed his life. And so I reached out to Henry and I was like, that's amazing, my friend. We have now been staying in touch for about the last year and a half. And so all these, I kind of consider myself, I'm not an online coach per se, like I don't work with clients individually, but I do through my advocacy with the book and through certain other, like Sober Active NYC, and helping other places and cities start their own sober active organizations. And so it's an amazing thing. But what I find is this: it takes someone like you help me have the light bulb go off in my head about the import of nutrition and also supplements, which you talk about quite a bit. You talk about issues that other people don't. And so I've now, as your student, now been able to teach some of what I learned from you and other people to others to help them have the light bulb go off in their head. And my next book is called Sober and Active. And a number of the stories, it's the stories of individual people who have read Spiritual Adrenaline and benefited. And a number of the stories will be in Sober and Active. And so I just feel amazing to have been part of improving someone's life who I didn't know, but yet could relate to through my book.
Very interesting. Based on your experience, if a personal trainer is dealing with somebody who has an addiction, whether it's to alcohol or something like that, are there any telltale signs that a trainer might pick up on if, say, their client wasn't going to volunteer that information? And I understand why they wouldn't. But is there anything that might tip a trainer off, say, maybe there's something going on here that the person hasn't told me about?
Well, I mean, likely if they smell like liquor, they come to work out. That might be a suggestion. But a lot of the common things, like are they late? Do they fail to show up? Do they set an appointment and there's nowhere to be found? You call them, you can't reach them for days, and then they reach out with some kind of excuse. So I think the common signs of that could mean a lot of things apply here. But I do think what's important is that trainers be aware of what's happening in the body when they have somebody who does come to them who identifies as someone as being in recovery. For example, many trainers today will push creatine or whatever it is, the powdered proteins and all these different things. All of that has to get processed in the liver. And if you're dealing with someone who's coming out of addiction recovery, for example, there is someone who likely has compromised liver function. So some of the things that these trainers may recommend or work with other clients may actually be counterproductive, if you will, in the sense of someone who's in addiction recovery. And I think, also when you have somebody who's in addiction recovery, let's just take alcohol, for example, because there's commonalities, but there's also differences. So if you're working with someone as a trainer or a nutritionist coming out of recovery, you want to make sure they're aware of what, a nutrient deficient, a nutrient rich nutrient deficient, calorie rich food is, like white bread, French fries, all these different things that we tend to go to because, as I write about in the book, and Bill Wilson and Dr. Silkworth, going all the way back to the founding of AA, acknowledged these foods replicate in the brain the chemical reactions that alcohol did for many, many people. Not to the extent, but it's the same chemical process. And so if you want to help people set the new healthy habit, for example, getting up early, going to the gym, if you want to make sure that they're understanding the physiology that keeps them dependent on the older habits. And I think that that's taught in, for example, the personal injury and personal trainer certification course and the sports nutrition course, but not to, I think that people that are actually on the ground, boots on the ground at the gym or wherever they are working with clients, really need to understand that so they can help that client break the bad habit and create the new habit.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point. They have compromised liver function. Probably not a group of people you want to be mentioning supplements to. So they're all getting processed through the liver and the
Well,
kidneys.
that's exactly right. And you and I both know that many people in the fitness community abuse supplements in ways that damage the body as opposed to help or enhance. And what I write about in the book, and I think is super important for anybody who's serious about, really developing a positive plan for their physical, mental well-being, is get the blood work done. Know what your liver function is. Know what's going on with your kidneys. Know what's going on with your heart, right? And then develop a program around that can actually help you address the health consequences of your years in active addiction. So I just think it's never one size fits all. But when we're talking about people, in this area, I think it's important to really understand that blood work blood doesn't lie. It will tell you everything you need to know about somebody's health.
Yeah, I agree. Good. It's good advice for everybody to get their blood work done periodically. I'm so OCD. I actually have a spreadsheet that goes back probably 20 yees of all my blood
Okay.
work, everything, and I can look through the years to see how things are changing. Sometimes I don't like what I see.
Okay, so
I'm like,
you
what
and
am
you and I have a lot in common. I didn't realize that because this started with Mike Foley, who I met at the gym in Portland, Maine, years ago. He introduced me to some other folks, but I had been tracking the major markers in my blood for the last 14 years. I tested about twice a year just to make sure my hormone levels, where I know where they are, I know what's happening, in my kidneys, my liver, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, that's another aspect of like why it's important to take responsibility. And I write about this in the book. When you get blood work in a hospital, it's so hard to understand like what does this mean and what is this abbreviation. So the blood work that I recommend and that I get from my doctor is through a specific company that actually makes it very easy. It's user friendly, and I can track from 1 year to every test over the last 14 years how my body is either getting healthier, staying the same, or getting older. So, but it makes it easy, and that's part of empowering ourselves to understand, like, if I have problems in my kidneys, what are the markers I should be looking for? If I have problems with my liver, what should I be following? And by the way, type 2 diabetes, so many people that come out of addiction recovery have those lifestyle illnesses, right? So they want to know, and they want to be able to track, their progress, not just what they see physically, because that's important, but what they can't see and what's happening on the inside of their body. And you can do that through the blood work. Can't do that in a mirror.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you think that type 2 diabetes maybe increase maybe because they're substituting one addiction for another addiction?
So, I mean, in recovery, and it's a big issue, and it's a controversial issue. Many people who don't understand the six sister foods to alcohol that Bill Wilson identified will replace alcohol and other high calorie, nutrient deficient foods with ice cream. You go to an AA meeting, and I'm not being critical because I go to the meetings, but you go there and people are eating donuts, cookies, the sugar that goes into the coffee. And there are people who say, like, that's just what happens to alcoholics that are in recovery. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? You don't need to kind of replace one addiction with another. And so, the statistical data, and I have all of it in the book, relating to people in addiction recovery and type 2 diabetes is the ratio of people who have that disease and other lifestyle related illnesses, is disproportionate to the general population. So it's incredibly important to understand that you can get sober, but being sober and being healthy are not the same thing.
You bring up something interesting. One of my favorite shows of the last decade was about recovering alcoholics. It was called Mom. And I just saw an episode the other day, a rerun. And you're absolutely right. Every time they had a meeting, they were bringing donuts and all kinds of, junk food into the meetings. It's a great show, but that's a point that until you mentioned it a second ago, it never occurred to me that really they are bringing, nobody's bringing carrots in a salad. you know
No, and I think that there's a period where when first got sober, I started to put weight on, and I realized, in the first it was like the first 6 months to 8 months, that if I continued to eat the way I was eating in early recovery, I was going to be a very unhealthy and very large person. But look, when you're in early recovery, it's better to put on a pound than overdose. It's better to put the weight on than drive a DUI and crash a car and hurt yourself or somebody else. So it's less of a it's a much more desirable outcome than continuing to use and destroy yourself and other people. But the point is that that has to transition to what's a sustainable lifestyle. And what does it really mean? I write at length, there's a whole chapter, and I got some hate emails and hate mail about it. But there's a difference between abstinence and sobriety, right? And so abstinence is when you're white knuckling it, and you're like, you go to the gym, like, I hate it here, and like, but I'm gonna go because someone told me, my wife said I have to go, or she's gonna divorce me, whatever. And then there's embracing healthy lifestyles, and there's embracing change, which is really hard for a lot of people. And I think that true sobriety is not only abstaining from the substance, but finding a lifestyle that perpetuates health and happiness down the line, and spiritual happiness down the line.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to ask you is how AAAI-ISMA has helped you bring fitness to the public. And along those same lines, has it opened any doors to bring your message into the AA community? I mean, do they have
Oh,
speakers?
so I like AAAI because obviously I'll be in the Atlantic City convention in June. I come every year and I get recertified. I highly recommend the in-person certification workshops because I just find you meet people, you get to know people. It's a different dynamic, than on virtually. So I really enjoy it, and I take classes. For example, like I took Mike Ricketts' class in the last in New Jersey, in Princeton, New Jersey. And it was all about like sustainable, healthy living. I didn't do it for the certification. I did it because I learn a lot. And then I take that back and I write about it either through my books or through how I communicate with other people, through Sober Active NYC, which is an organization I've started. I take Dr. Johnson's seminars, like, and I learn a lot. And also, like, I don't have to do it for the certification specifically. I do it because it helps benefit me. And then I try and practice those things in my life. And then I try and help other people by sharing the gifts that I learned. They say in recovery, you can't keep what you have without giving it away, right? So it's kind of, my way of really helping myself by helping others.
Yeah, and yeah, AAAI is doing their first Atlantic City conference since the pandemic, which is great. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun time. And yeah, I've sat through Mike Ricketts' classes as well. He has the best stories. Yeah, he's much more fun at parties than I am. He has phenomenal.
Uh, I'll be honest with you, like he's a really good example. because like he doesn't take himself seriously at all. I mean, he cracks jokes, but
Mhm.
he is like so knowledgeable when it comes to physiology, and I mean, it's just unbelievable. I try and take notes, and the same is true in your classes, Robert. I try and take notes as he's going because I'm like, oh my God, like I learned just in like an hour to 2 hours of sitting there so much that I'm not going to hear anyplace else. And I sincerely mean that, and that's why I keep coming back.
Yeah. It's gonna be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. And you're right. Doing online stuff is good, but there's nothing like being in front of people. And as somebody else I was just talking to recently, it's that whole everybody gets together and you just feed off everybody's energy. It's a fun
Hmm.
time. I enjoy it. There's nothing like it.
And
Um,
Atlantic City, you can't beat it.
you
I
can't
was looking.
beat it. The
I was
boardwalk.
looking up. I know it's right there, and it's great. And I was looking up who's going to be at the Hard Rock Cafe. So it's like there's a lot to do there, and so I'm super excited. And I'm hoping the weather's nice because we're right on the beach as well. Convention center where the conference is, so it's
Yes.
perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't get much easier than that. I enjoy it. Um, since you've been in the fitness world, for a while, is there anything that you think fitness trainers should be aware of that maybe they're not, that you've come across?
So I think a couple of things. What I tend to notice is like the younger trainers usually train everybody as if they're the same age. Like, I do think I see that a lot. I see a lot of I see a lot of people training people to do what they know, as opposed to trying to continue. And this is why it's important to go to conferences and expand knowledge about what we know, so that we can then help guide others. But most importantly, from the point of view of what I write about and the people that I deal with, keep in mind that although fitness has become so commercialized, for many people, it's a spiritual place. Going to the gym may be the only hour or so of the whole day they get away from the grind. And, like I like to put my phone in airplane mode and like, that's it. The music goes on, or I just like meditate as I'm working out. Like to me, it's a spiritual place. And, the gym I went to in New York for many years is called Temple, and there's a reason for that. To really appreciate that. And remember, I think this is true these days, that, social media and what we see on TV, people are struggling. Like people are angry and they're depressed, and that there's a great power to the community that comes together in a place where we celebrate health and fitness. And so there's a real spiritual aspect to fitness. And I just want to remind any trainer out there who's listening to keep that in mind as they go about their daily routine and helping other people.
I think it's a good point. The gym it's an escape for many people. And one of the things that I've noticed, a couple of things I've noticed recently is everybody's on their phone in the gym. They're sitting on the machines, looking at their phones, and
Yeah.
not only that, but now they're filming themselves in the gym, in the
Hmm.
locker rooms, which
Hmm.
I didn't even know that was a legal thing. But I don't. It just seems inappropriate. I mean, like I said, you're there to get away from everything, and yet, like for me, I see people filming themselves in the gym. I don't want to be in their video. I go out of my way to go around their
Yeah.
video, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
man. And I'm like, yo, I got the headphones on. I'm not paying attention. I'm just doing my thing. But yeah, they're videoing themselves. They're on their phone. They're sitting on the equipment. I'm like, come on, we got stuff to do. What are you doing?
No,
Um,
it's crazy, and like that's taking away from the experience that
yeah,
they're actually coming from. I work out, and I have done this religiously now for many years at 5 a.m., where there's fewer knuckleheads, if you will, than there are at other times of the day. But I think like it's up to the gym operator. Some operators are more, they will enforce the rules a little bit more. Like for example, I see people now like in the sauna and like, hey, yo, what's going? Like, who wants to be in the sauna and listen to a conversation or have a video showing and the noise, like So it is what it is. But I do think though, it's the same thing they say about AA. There, just because you go to a bad meeting doesn't mean they all suck, right? So just because you go to one gym and that's happening in one place doesn't mean it's not happening down the street. And I actually have a couple of different memberships because it enables me to kind of change the dynamic and change the atmosphere as as appropriate for my life and how I'm feeling in that point in time. And I'd rather give my money. Let me tell you something. I used to spend like $20 a day on cigarettes. I haven't smoked in 12 years, but like, so when you add that up per day, that's a huge amount of money. I'd rather give 25, $30 to a gym operator on a monthly membership. It's de minimis compared to what I used to spend on alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes.
Right. Do you think that there is an opportunity for fitness trainers to be maybe guest speakers at AA meetings? Do they allow that?
So, we have this, there's not at actual meetings because of confidentiality and it's anonymous and all that, unless the person's actually in the program and part of it. But I'm part of, like, I've co-founded Sober Active NYC. I recently helped start an organization called Sober Active Scranton. A couple of years ago, I helped start an organization called Sober Active Canada. And so there are groups there, and there were existing groups, like, for example, Addict to Athlete, which is in Pueblo, Colorado, New Mexico, and there are others all over the country now, where people are doing exactly that, and not in a 12-step setting, but what we call the Sober Active movement. And I have a chapter in the book about the Sober Active movement. Scott Strode was the founder back in 2006 in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado. And I go from there. And it's multiplying. And I can tell you this much because I'm considered kind of like the go-to guy on. I follow and I reach out to people and I learn so much about what's happening. There are people doing it now in the Philippines, in Ireland, in England, in Spain. It's all over. You're going to laugh. So I was in Nepal, and this is my second trip I had gone to Nepal a couple of times to hike. So I was up in the mountains of Nepal and hiking and stuff like that. And I saw people, it was an AA meeting and people were doing like yoga poses and all the rest. And I was like, it's everywhere. I just blew my mind to see that in this village up in Nepal. So recovery is everywhere. Fitness is everywhere. And increasingly, whether it be in person or it be online, there's plenty of resources. But I will say this, though, and this is a cautionary note. There's a lot of people that are making a lot of money, especially on social media, by representing to people that they have some kind of specialized knowledge or programs that can really impact them. That really bothers me, which was why I wrote the book. I don't make a lot of money at all off the book, but there were so many people selling junk science and false prophets saying you can achieve this or that on the internet in particular, that I think it's important to really, this is an evidence-based book. Can be your foundation, and then to go to credible organizations like AAAI and people like you, Mike Rickett, Dr. Johnson, and everybody else, because that's where you're getting pound for pound, like for pennies on what you'd pay on the dollar on the internet, sound advice that can help you build that foundation that will benefit you for many, many years to come.
Yeah, I agree. You got to validate where you're getting your information from. We all have these powerful computers in our pocket. We can look up everything, but few people do, and they don't do sometimes the detective work to investigate where they're getting your information from.
But you're a very good advocate on this point. Let me say that to you. And it benefited me when I was writing the book. When you teach at your seminar or at the conferences, when you teach or when you speak online about the product, you oftentimes will say how many people participated in the study, who paid for the study. You'll go into the underlying facts of the study. Like, that is invaluable, and most people don't do that. You watch something or you see something on the internet or on TV, and they go, "Well, in a recent study, well, it's two people," like whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
have to look at the criteria. You have to look at the modalities that were implemented. You do that. But many, many people are being fooled and they don't even realize it. They think they're relying on good science.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I was trained to be a scientist, and I think that's the best compliment anybody can give me as a scientist, because I do like to go through the boring parts of the research that I think a lot of people don't like. Uh, and
But
and
that's why people should come to see you, because you do all the boring stuff, and then we get the benefit. And we look good.
yeah, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, take that and go. Yeah, I'm fine with people forgetting me as long as they remember the research. And, I'm okay with that.
They don't
And I
forget you,
and
Joe.
I
They
even
don't forget.
I appreciate that. And it's funny. I even remember something you said to me many years ago at a class, how you appreciated that I put the references at the bottom of my PowerPoint slides, and no
Hmm.
one had ever picked up on that before. And I'm like, finally, somebody noticed the references.
No, and it means a lot. It means a lot, and I do appreciate. That's why, again, I'm happy to do this podcast. But I'm not just doing it because I want to self promote. I'm doing it because you've helped me, and I know you've helped thousands and thousands of people, and I hope for many, many years to come. With your knowledge and with the attention to the details and the underlying, science, that you continue to help many, many people.
I appreciate that, Tom. Definitely do. Last question. If you could give any advice to, say, a personal trainer, whether they're just starting out or maybe they're a seasoned trainer with a number of years under their belt, what would you suggest that they do to become a better personal trainer?
Two things: make it fun, because nobody wants to do anything if it's not fun. And second, keep a low barrier to entry, because you don't want to overtrain somebody and make them feel like, I can't do this. The lower the barrier to entry, the more likely someone's going to not only come back, but continue and grow. And so you start with people with the really ultralight weights, or, light cardio with very little resistance, and build their confidence as they have fun, and then build up. And I think that those two things are key to not only helping the person embrace the lifestyle and fitness, but commit to keep making it part of their daily life for many, many years to come.
That's great advice. Tom, I couldn't have said it better myself. Tom Shanahan, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll let you get back to your law work now.